Maybe don't know.
This time, this time, this time, this time, this time to build, 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 this time power, this time to build power, this time to build power, this time to build power.
What's up, everybody? I'm your host, Chris Hampton. Welcome to episode 157 of the Power Company Podcast, brought to you, as always, by PowerCompanyClimbing.com. It has been an absolutely crazy January. I've been all over the place, and I've still got more traveling to do. I'm headed to OR tomorrow in Denver, and I'm going to fly in and out of there as quick as possible because, honestly, I'm just not a big fan of going to OR. But I do have some interviews lined up that I'm excited about, so I need to get those and get out. And then I'm headed straight to Waco Tanks, where I'm just doing a 4-day smash and grab, check out some potential big giant goal projects for a future trip. So, wrapping my month up by giving myself the gift of Waco Tanks for a few days. In the meantime, though, I can't say that I apologize for not getting any podcasts out because I have been going like mad here, and there are good ones coming, and this one is especially special. I was recently in Ottawa, Canada, and I got the chance to sit down and chat with Yves Gravelle, who is, I believe, 34 at this point, and pound for pound, maybe the strongest human on the planet. It's kind of absurd, really. Frankly, I want to use the word freak of nature, but that would completely miss the point of how much work that Yves puts in to get where he's at. He's climbed V14, and he holds a bunch of world records in arm lifting, which is essentially a grip and pull strength competition. And we'll talk a little more about that. I am rambling now, so we are just going to get into this conversation with Yves Gravelle at Coyote Rock Gym in Ottawa, Canada. Let's get into it.
I feel like a beginner still in that style. I have so much to learn. And one of the hardest things is just to let go of the fact that you're going to have trouble and you're going to suck at it at first, and like not worry about what other people are thinking.
Power. This time to build power. This time to build power. This time to build power.
This gym reminds me a lot of like the gyms that I came up in.
Yeah.
In that it's an older gym, you know, it doesn't look anything like the big mega gyms that people know now.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. This is, I think one of the first, I think it was the first gym that was open in Ottawa. And yeah, I think I've been climbing here for over 20 years now. And yeah, it's always been, I think it's always been a really good part of my success is climbing here because the owner and it always allowed me to put whatever I wanted on the wall. So we always had a lot of backfill, a lot of steep walls. So we always had like 3-4 walls that are backfilled with tons of bad holds and stuff.
Yeah.
So it was really easy for me to progress. And they always allowed me to put whatever boulders I wanted on the wall. So when I competed, you know, I could set anything I want. So I think it was a big part of my success as a climber and stuff. And I think we had everything for training. But yeah, it's like definitely one of the older gyms and stuff. You can see it's like,
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, it like brings back all these memories, all this nostalgia of the old gyms, you know, and I've seen some old holds on the wall. I've seen, you know, there's a bunch of old great hangboards upstairs and old pusher system tiles and all these cool old things
we have
that we
a lot
all
of
learned to train on.
The older set of holds and stuff. And the owner, Jody, so we experimented with last year. to retexture the holds, so the really old stuff we had, and we were able to color match everything. So we're able to kind of almost like they do with the fiberglass holds, but we
Right.
did that with the holds, so it gave more of a uniform look. Because before, nothing back in the days, they didn't
Right,
have
they didn't
any
set by
color
colors, right.
coding. So now they did that, so it looks a little bit more uniform.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's pretty cool. But
Is
yeah,
there
yeah.
still like backfilling in here? Do you still
Yeah,
do
like
that?
I think right now they just took it down. Like usually the red cave we have downstairs, we always have so the two side of the islands are backfill, and the big 45 is filled, and then on this side, on the north side, there's the 30 degrees usually that is full. So
Cool.
it's kind of nice. Like and same thing. It's like one of the it's not a really high gym, so it's kind of hard to train for lead or. Lead or top rope and stuff, but since we have so much backfill, we can do a lot of circuits and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
do some traverse, and it's always been we were able to
I think
get
that's
away
super
with it.
cool. That's one of the things I think big mega gyms are missing. That they either don't teach the people how to use their project walls,
Mm-hmm.
or they just don't have them, and their setting is really sparse, and there's not enough holds to do circuits and things like that, or to make up your own boulders, which I think is super valuable. Creating your own movement.
Yeah, I think our generation we grew up making our own boulder proms and
Exactly.
climbing on walls like this. And I think now people are like, how do you say, like they're spoiled, because now every week you get the new boulders, and like people kind of like lost that aspect. And I think there's a lot of stuff to learn from making boulders and learning how to create stuff. And it's definitely something that I find is missing nowadays in the modern climbing community, for sure.
Yeah. And you're coaching here.
Yeah, I coach just the comp team, so 3 times a week. So it's a small group. We're about 12 athletes, right now. And
Yeah.
I really enjoy it. I've been doing it for the past 5 years. So it's something I started doing when my first daughter was born. And I really enjoy like teaching people and passing on the stuff that I know to other kids, and giving back, I guess. And so yes.
Yeah, well, thanks to you for taking some time out of coaching to sit down and talk. And we're at Coyote Rock Gym for anybody who's not from in town and doesn't know what we're talking about here. Plus, you've got a business doing special effects masks and things like that are ridiculously detailed and cool. And
Thanks.
You've got 2 daughters,
a
busy. Family, a wife, and your own climbing and your own arm lifting stuff. So
yeah, for
you're
sure.
kinda
It's
busy.
it's crazy. It's really hard to kind of like try to manage everything, and like to to make time to be good at something. I find like have to choose my battles and
Yeah.
stuff. And but I've been pretty lucky. I think with having the home business, it gave me a lot of freedom with my schedule.
Yep.
And now that the girls are growing up a little bit too, like I spend most of my time training at home. Like once they're asleep, I'll go 2 hours in the basement and do some training. And the last year, that's when I discovered arm lifting, and this was awesome because
That's
when
only been in the last year.
Yeah, like so last October, not this October, but the year before, this is when I there was a local competition here, and just before that, I hurt my ankle, so I couldn't climb much. I had the really bad sprain on the 2 sides of the ankle, so I had to find something else. And I was introduced to this sport. There was a local competition here at our gym, actually at Coyote. So someone invited me to this event, and it was awesome because it was exactly what I needed. I didn't have the time with the toddlers to go climbing, or
Right.
even if you climb on a home wall, if you're trying to climb with a kid, like they're always coming towards the wall, and it's very challenging. And just going to the gym, finding time to going to the gym was very challenging. So I found this was really what I needed. I could the kids could play in the basement at the same time. I could do some lift, take a lot of rest, and it kept me strong for bouldering, and it kept my level up. And I learned tons of new things that I could apply to my climbing. Yeah. And now I think I spend most of my time. Still, even for the climbing part that I do, that I started climbing a bit more again. I spend most of my climbing time on my own wall, just because it's easier for me to train at home.
Sure.
And then usually the nights that I coach, I'll stay an hour or two and try to climb a bit more different type of movements and stuff, and like kind of like iron everything out and like, hit the things that I can't do on my own board.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to get too much into numbers, but I do want to kind of set up a timeline of things so we kind of understand it. How long were you climbing before you started the arm lifting? You've been climbing 20 plus years?
Yeah, I think it's been around 20 years now. Like maybe it's a bit more than 20 years that I've been climbing. Yeah. And then...
and what level were you bouldering at before you started the arm lifting stuff?
I think like up to V14, like I've climbed before. And for me, like I didn't have a lot of time to, like I was always so busy with tons of stuff that I didn't have as much time to go project outside. So it's been kind of limited, but So, and then when I started arm lifting, shortly after that, like the last year and a half, I've been doing the arm lifting stuff.
Was it your first arm lifting, like big competition that you became world champion?
Yeah. So like when I came here, I knew, like when I did the first local, like my friend invited me over, and I was here like probably like half an hour late, and I had no clue what I was doing and stuff. And I had no clue what I should be lifting, because I've never tried any of the implements. So I kind of winged it, and I didn't know what to expect and stuff. And then when the results came in after the competition, I realized that like, I was doing really well, especially for my body weight. Like I was like one of the top lifters. So I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. Maybe I could do really well at this, and maybe I should try more. And this is when I met at the competition the organizer. His name is Eric Roussin. And it was so lucky. Like he lived 5 minutes from my house, like walking. And this guy basically organizes the entire competition circus for both arm lifting and for arm lifting in the country. So like the federation, he runs everything. So we started training every Monday together, and he really showed me everything and like took me under his wing, and we started training together, and it just became my thing. Yeah.
Wow, that's really cool. So let's try, and I want to send people to your Instagram to see all the videos and all of that, but let's explain a couple of the things that are like your specialties. Mm-hmm. We just tried the Saxon bar upstairs. We were here with the performance climbing coach at seminar people, and we went up and tried the Saxon bar, which is like a 3-inch square tube that you're essentially deadlifting on.
Yeah.
Then what are the other implements that you're using?
So the ones that we use at the World Champions, like the ones that are very famous and common. So it's the Saxon bar, like 3-inch, the Rolling Thunder, which is like a rolling handle, the Excalibur, which is a vertical lift. So it's like basically a pipe, but you lift vertically.
Oh, right.
So that one, and the hub is very popular. And the other one is the axle, which is basically like a deadlift bar, but with a thicker diameter, so 2-inch, and you have to lift double overhand, so no mixed grip, no hooking, like hook grip or anything like that. So so those are the events that we saw at the bigger competitions. And then some of the small ones, sometimes they're going to vary. They're going to have some different elements, like the wrist wrench that we tried earlier and stuff. So it really depends on the competitions, I guess.
Yeah, and how many of these things are you, like, do you hold world records in?
Well, I have a lot of class world records, so like for my weight class, like I think almost everything that I tried, like I got I had the class record. The things that I got a few overall, and those are the ones really specific for the fingertips, I guess, like the stirrup, the one I showed you, it's almost like an edge. So almost there's a 1-inch edge, or like a half-inch edge. So those were definitely the things that I had, that I was really good at. There's another one, it's called the tip tester, which is basically like a half tube, but like it's like almost like lifting a sloper, like a really bad sloper. So that one too, obviously, like I did really well because of my background in climbing. So those are the ones that I did really well, and that I have like overall records and stuff in.
And watching you do it on these videos isn't nearly as impressive as trying it and then watching you do it, because in the videos you make it look really easy, And when you stand here and try the thing and it feels impossible, and then I watch you walk over and just pick it up all casual while having a conversation, it's way more impressive. So if people are interested in this stuff, they should try and find some of these implements. Is there a website that people can go to learn more about the arm lifting things?
Yeah, sure. There's a couple websites. Like there's one that has a lot of the current records and stuff. It's called I think gripsport.org.
Okay.
And then there's also the Grip Board, which is like basically a forum that's interesting. Has a lot of information with a lot of the companies that you can buy the products. If people want to buy some of the products, then there's like obviously like Iron Mind that has a lot of the bigger it's one of the bigger brands that have the Rolling Thunder, the UB and stuff like that. Sorinex has the pinch bar, which I think is one of the ones that translates best to climbing. So the pinch blocks is one that I think we can gain a lot of. And then there's Arm Assassin that has pretty much everything. Like they do like I think they probably have like 30 different products and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then some of the ones that can be interesting is like the wrist wrench that we were talking about that really attacks your wrist and stuff. I saw a lot of results. A lot of results for sloper training that I saw some results and.
Yeah, and I'll make sure I've got links to those things. Let's talk more about the transfer you've seen from training all this stuff to climbing, because I think, you know, sometimes we can have an advantage in something as a climber, or we're just stronger from being climbers.
Yeah.
And we get into that and we get really good at that, but it doesn't really help in climbing much, you know? But you said you've seen some transfer from these things, and the Saxon bar was one of the things you mentioned.
Yeah, all the pinch stuff. So what I found with the pinch, either using the pinch blocks or like the Saxon bar and stuff, I find it isolates more the pinching motions or the thumb. One thing that I noticed when we rock climb, before I started arm lifting, I always thought that my pinches were really strong. Mm-hmm. And when I started this, I realized that like compared to a lot of the elite arm lifters, it was pretty weak. And I think the reason behind that is because it's not necessarily our thumbs that are really strong, but it's the compression from like that we create from our lats and stuff. So squeezing the pinches.
Right.
So, and even a lot of the pinches that we use during our training for climbers are usually like two pinches in the roof and stuff. And we use a lot of back compression or squeezing.
Yeah.
And that, I think that's the part we're really strong at. And one thing that kind of proves that is like if you look at my lifts on the pinch block with one hand, like it's going to be pretty, like maybe like around, like say if we take 3 inch or something like that, it's going to be probably close to around 100 pounds or just under 100 pounds with one hand. And if I go 2 hands, then I can hit like over 260, 270 on the same diameter.
Right.
So it just shows you, it's not because I'm, you know, like it's the same diameter and stuff like that. And
right.
It's just because I'm so strong with my back and compressing creating pressure. So I think that's one of the things we're really strong at as climbers. And I think isolating that finger can make you even stronger.
So do you like the pinch blocks more than the Saxon bar for translating to climbing?
I think they're better. If you want to isolate the thumbs, I think the pinch blocks are really great. As long as you don't create too much pronation and stuff, and like kind of like start twisting your wrist to create leverage. If you keep your hand straight, then you're gonna really focus on the thumb. I think that's an important part if you want to get more transfer for climbing.
Yep.
And then the Saxon bar I really love because I find it's a great motion too. Same thing too. It's a great exercise, like a great variation of the deadlift, which it can be a good advantage, I guess, for climbers and stuff because our legs are kind of weak and stuff. So I think I see a lot of advantages using it.
Yeah, and you know, I liked deadlifting the Saxon bar more than deadlifting a regular bar, just simply because on a regular bar I get so focused on I can lift more weight, I can lift more weight, and it's, for me, it seems like at the higher weights, there's much less transfer to climbing. Like the first 3/4 of what you gain is great, and then the rest of it's just you're getting better at the deadlift.
Yeah.
But this really forced me to lift it in a different way, more like compression.
Yeah, and I think like if you're gonna start lifting, if you want to focus and do a lot of like big lifts on the deadlift bar, then it becomes a lot about leg and back strength, and it's not necessarily a thing that we want to add as climbers, because then we're starting to get really heavy and we're adding weight in areas that we don't really need.
Right.
So I think it can be like counter beneficial and stuff. So one thing I like about like the Saxon bar, you know, like it's a good exercise to condition our back. Same as the axle, you know, like it's never weights that I think that as climbers it's going to get dangerous or bad for our back, like because we're trying to lift too much. It's going to attack our fingers before it attacks our back. So I
it
think
didn't
those are
seem
great.
to, you know, I think the deadlift is great for like if you need to target the posterior chain, your glutes and your hamstrings, and this didn't do that nearly as much. It was much more about the way you're using your upper body, which I thought was super interesting.
Yeah, and you probably felt too, like because of the compression that we're using to like on the bar, like we're squeezing so much on the bar, it's kind of hard to keep like a clean form of the deadlift.
For sure.
So it's almost more like a good morning, like we're like the back is straight and we're lifting up.
Yep.
Yeah,
I thought it was really cool.
Cool. I'm glad you like that.
The other one I was really fascinated by that you mentioned already was the wrist ranch.
Yeah.
And that one, I wasn't sold on it when you were explaining it, but then when I tried it, it was definitely the same sensation in my wrists that I get when I'm trying to hold bad slopers.
Yeah. And
I just know a lot of people they get wrist issues from climbing on slopers a lot. And that wrist ranch at a low intensity seems like a really great way for those people to build up tolerance to slopers in a really controlled, progressive way. And it seems like a really easy way for stronger climbers to train their sloper strength without wasting skin by sliding off of slopers.
Yeah, you know, like the wrist wrench is an interesting one because it was introduced by the arm wrestling community, and what it's made for is really to train the wrist to get like really strong wrist to break the wrist of your opponent when like
turn that wrist
chain.
in.
Yeah, exactly. So, but like it's such a versatile tool depending on how you use it. Like you can train so many things with it. Like, I mean, you can do rehab by like just doing like kind of like almost wrist curl motions and stuff like that, or training antagonists and stuff with it. And then you can do like, if you want to lift it more like the traditional method with the thumb on the other side. And then it really attacks, it really works on stabilizing like the wrist and also like the fingers and everything like that to like keep that chain. It's an isometric hold, like you're trying to hold that.
Yeah.
But all it wants to do is open your hand open. Like it's crazy. It's a really weird feeling because if you haven't tried it, it's really hard to explain. But all it wants to do is crack your wrist open and open your fingers up too.
Yep.
And it's one of the exercises that I really saw, like, because last year, because of my ankle injury, I didn't climb much. And I was training a lot on that implement, and I went upstairs. I always had trouble with the 45 slopers, you know, on the Beastmaker and stuff.
Yep.
And I even saw a challenge of people trying it on the small micros, like the 10 and the 8 millimeter micros. And I felt like
upside down.
Flip upside down. And
So
I always
that
felt
that
that sloper. I always felt like it was impossible when I tried it. And I didn't do like zero climbing. All I did was train on that thing. And I went to the sloper. My wrists were so strong, and the being able to hold that angle with the knuckle, like I've never felt that. Like I could hold like really bad slopers, like I could never do before. And I was able to hold that like the first time I tried it after like, you know, trying it for like 6 months before I tried it. And it felt like impossible. And I felt like there's zero progression that I could do that would get me there.
Right.
And I just tried that like that. And like I could do pull-ups, like rep pull-ups off those slopers. It was an amazing feeling. And I think it was the first time too I was able to hang the Beastmaker slopers with one hand, like, so it was crazy. Like I found like I got a lot of strength in my wrist and my fingers, and a lot of benefits and a lot of stuff to gain for climbers, I think, in this one. Yeah.
And so, first off, I'm sold on that thing. I'm going to buy one as soon as I get back to Wyoming.
Yeah.
My wife, when she climbs on slopers, complains about her wrists, and I think that's going to be a great way to progress for her.
Mm-hmm.
And slopers are my preferred style of climbing, and pinches. But after watching you on the Saxon bar and watching you lift that thing, the wrist wrench, so easily, I feel like I've got massive amounts of strength I could gain in my hands and wrists still. And I do think that climbing on slopers is one of the best ways to get better on slopers,
for sure,
because it requires really specific body positions and learning how to use them.
And at one point you have to transfer to whatever activity you're doing, right? So like it's good if you mix it, whatever you do. If you're training a lot on the Saxon bar, if you go train on system style boulders with a lot of pinches, then it's going to transfer better to what you need to do. I believe anyway.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So none of the arm lifting stuff is helping your crimp strength, really.
No.
Or is it?
Like, I mean, like you could do exercise like there's a few companies now that have these portable boards or the blocks, like Tension has them, Digit, and
but that's not an arm lifting thing. So
it's not. There's one. It's called the Stirrup. It's the same thing. It's made of metal, but it has like an inch edge and a half-inch edge. And I think there's a lot of my friends that started to train off the floor like this. That's something I picked up from arm lifting. That I find that I got a lot of gains and I've learned a lot from was picking off the floor. I find it's really challenging. I don't know about you, but it's really challenging to structure intensity and on a hangboard, because then when you change the edges and stuff, you kind of have to retest, and unless you really know yourself and you know your level, it's really hard to structure your intensity or structure a proper plan or periodize a plan to get really good gains.
Yeah, you can definitely get to the point where you're so strong that hanging on a hangboard with enough weight is really uncomfortable or just really hard to do logistically.
Yeah, so I found one of the advantages of pulling from the ground like this is that you can really structure things really well for a plan and doing, reps or holds and stuff like that. And it just simplifies everything because you can calculate things so much easier, So that's one thing that I learned that I've been applying a lot to my climbing training now, and also adding progressive loading patterns. That's one thing that I've noticed, that even if I'm really warmed up, I did a really good climbing warm up, say if I go on the Saxon bar and I try to lift 260 or something like a max like we did earlier, it's not gonna go. It's not gonna work.
Max like you did earlier.
Yeah. It's not gonna work. So I find that if I go progressively into my max, so say start around 50-55% of my max and slowly increasing, then I can really get really high results. I can get closer to my max and higher intensity and stuff. And plus it reduces the risk of injuries, I find.
Sure.
So that's something that I've been adding a lot to my own climbing when I do my dead hangs and stuff like that. So start increasing, progressively increasing the intensity.
Yep.
And I saw great results, and it just makes everything safer. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've seen these videos of you now. I think most recently it was hanging on the 4mm edges, the little digit 4mm, which I just felt, and they felt ridiculous. Like the 6mm I can hang on for a few seconds. 4mm feels impossible.
Yeah.
Were you training for those on one of these no hang devices where you're picking it up off the floor, or were you training on those little crimps?
Well, I always had some pretty good finger strength for crimps. I most of the training I do for climbing, for the dead hangs and stuff like that, are going to be either two hands on really small edges, so the 6mm or something like that, or I'm going to go with one hand. So a lot of one-arm dead hangs. That's been the thing that I've been doing, I guess, since I'm a teenager. Last 10 years has been kind of I always had a lot of really good progress with that. So I'll do one-arm dead hangs on small edges. So, I started something like an inch, and then I went to half inch, and now it's on the micros, 10 millimeters, 8 millimeters, 6 millimeters. And I was able to kind of structure my training so to progressively get to those results. And one thing I never did too much was had a lot of weight when I did the dead hangs. I prefer to go down on the size
Yep.
than adding like a ridiculous. I find it gets dangerous. Like your body doesn't really know how to kind of like you get kind of clumsy, I find.
Sure.
So yeah, most of the time I don't train with I don't do the hangs with much more than 30 pounds. If I can do it, then I'll usually move down on sizes. I prefer to go on smaller holds, than adding more weights. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you feel like, or are you ever afraid of like getting so wrapped up in the training process and all of that it becomes the goal instead of climbing? Because like with the arm lifting, that is the goal.
Yeah.
Do you ever feel that way with
Oh,
climbing?
for sure. And like it's for me, like training has always been like one of the parts that I really loved about climbing.
Yeah, same.
Like I just love I love the part of training, and it's always been almost like just as important, or like the goals and the way I set my goals too. Like I always have a logbook and stuff like that, and all my goals are always written and stuff. And for me, it's just as rewarding as getting a new record or something like that on a training exercise or a project on my own board, than doing a project outside or something like that. It's always been kind of like something for me that I liked. So it never really bothered me that, or it was something that if it was okay with me that training was I just really and I think that's why I really like arm lifting, because it feels like I'm training for climbing. Like that's how it feels like. So yeah.
So why you're a busy guy, you've got your business, you've got your coaching, your arm lifting competitions, your family, 2 daughters, a wife. Why still go outside and climb? What does it do differently for you? What's the payoff?
Same thing. I think I really enjoy like opening new lines. For me, it was like I also feel like it's important for me to like maybe leave like I feel like not enough people are opening like hard things around here. Like I feel like the next generation of kids are really focused on competition and stuff, especially around here.
Yeah.
And like it feels like no one really wants to spend the time in opening like all those hard lines. And I feel like I mean, I have the level to do it, and I really enjoy like opening stuff for the next generation so they can go test themselves, and nothing makes me feel like happier than when I see people going outside and going try my boulders.
Yeah.
Like I love that, because I feel like I accomplished something. So so it's very important for me, and I feel like I still have a lot to give, and I can still push the level. So I definitely want to open more art boulders around here so that the local people, can go outside and test their level on some really hard stuff, Yeah.
So it sounds like there's some creative payoff in it for you in some way.
Yeah.
Is your, you make, like we talked about earlier, you make masks, special effects stuff for movies, for haunted houses. Was your background in art or sculpting or something like that? How did you end up in there?
Like I always was really good at art, and like I never thought about living off of it. Like when I was like early teenage years, I really enjoyed like horror movies, sci-fi movies, and that's kind of all started, I guess. Like I always used to watch the special effects section and stuff, or like the special features and the bonus features and stuff in movies. And I was like, wow, this is really cool. That looks fun. And then my dad bought me like a bunch of stuff to start sculpting. So he has a bunch of stuff from the internet. Like we bought like clay sculpting tools and latex. And then we started making latex masks together. And this is how this thing started. And then, I didn't have much money to buy materials. So I started selling stuff on eBay. And then, like it just kind of grew up, like it kind of blew up off from there. Like I started selling stuff, buy more equipment, and then I specialized in silicone, and it just became the thing. Like I started making really high-end silicone masks for the movie industry and museums and all that stuff. So yeah, it's super, super cool.
Yeah, I like seeing that you follow these little interests that you have. Like this sounds interesting. I'm going to do this. why not just see where it leads, and then you just keep following it until it becomes this thing. I think that's really cool. It's not like you're just not like you're just sticking your toe in the water and you're like, oh, I don't know. You know, I'm okay at that. But
Yeah, I think that's what
you're seeing it through.
a lot
That's
of people
cool.
always said about me is like, or when I try something, I never try it a little bit. Like it's either I go all
Yeah,
out
yeah.
or like nothing. So yeah, I think why I had a lot of success in some of the stuff that I tried, because I always try to be the best at it. And like, I just get completely obsessed by it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're taking this like super systematic approach to your training. You're keeping all these notes, these log books, and then looking at your masks, they're super detailed, So before I even came to talk to you, just seeing those two things, that you're so systematic in both and that you're really detailed in these masks, I just pictured you as this really detail-oriented person. So it's interesting to hear that there's also this creative aspect of both, that you like
Yeah.
opening these new lines, and that,
Yeah.
and that this was a thing that you just were experimenting with, and it was something you really enjoyed.
Yeah, I think climbing is I think a lot of artists and like people that are really creative and stuff are appealed by climbing, because it's such a creative sport, like the movement, like there's no like set ways to do a thing, like know
Right.
that you can be so creative on the wall and have your own style. It's like there's not one way to do things. So I think it appeals a lot to people that are very artistic or creative and stuff. I think I see that a lot in
Yeah.
climbers and stuff. Yeah, they
Yeah.
go well together. It seems that that personality seems to mix
Yeah,
well
totally.
with climbing. Yeah,
I think
setting
that's
and
totally
all
true.
that stuff. Yeah,
Yeah, I see a lot of people come into climbing who are like, maybe even don't really fit into other sports,
That's true.
and they
Yeah.
don't consider themselves athletes, but then
Yeah.
they flourish in this place where they can be more creative, more expressive, and still be really physical,
yeah. Yeah, I don't know if you noticed too, but it's climbing is such a cool sport, because I find there's a lot of people that, like you said, like that were never really athletic, or like,
Yeah.
and then they come here, they could like be like video games, people that really, like they don't
Yep.
do much, and they can be like really skinny and stuff, and they'll come here and like they'll do really well, and they'll destroy people that like big bodybuilders, or
totally.
like, and it's same thing too. Like you can have like a really thin girl that's gonna come with like his bodybuilder boyfriend, and like, she'll destroy him like
Yeah.
on the wall. So it's a sport, I think, that can appeal to a lot of people that that never thought about being really good at sport, but like they try it and then they see, oh my god, I'm really good at this, and it's like, it's an interesting sport. And yeah.
All these kids here that you're coaching, I assume they're comp kids for the most part. Are
Yeah.
they interested in climbing outside?
Yeah, like the past years, I try to bring the kids like once or twice a year outside. Like this past year, I was like really busy with the family, like with the young one and stuff like that. But it's something I try to bring the kids out and like get to experience real rock. I think it's important to see, what real rock climbing is, or like climbing on rock. It's so different. There's so much to learn out of it too. Because when I noticed when I started climbing, I used to be a gym rat. All I did was climb inside.
Right.
And when I went outside, I got murdered. Like, like I don't know if
Yeah,
it's the same for
man.
you, but like a lot of
For
people,
sure.
it's like, wow, like there's so much to learn from outdoor climbing. Like,
Yeah.
you don't see the sequence, or the feet are so bad, and like there's
Yeah.
so many things to learn from climbing outside. And I think it's important to mix a little bit of both to be successful. Yeah. So I try to bring the kids outside and like get to experiment it. Same with the arm lifting too. A lot of the kids like they really they like to try the Saxon bars. It's pretty popular.
Yeah.
A lot of the older boys and stuff, and some of the older kids, they like to play with that stuff a lot.
That's
Yeah.
cool. So the kids know all about your arm lifting stuff that you're
Yeah,
doing.
yeah, I think
and-
so. Most of them, yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. I have one more question that I hadn't thought of until just now talking about these kids, but you just competed in Canadian Bouldering Nationals.
Yeah.
And you didn't make it to finals. You were in semis.
Yeah.
And you're kind of one of the older guys now. You
Yeah,
know,
for sure.
In fact, I showed up just in time to see finals. That's where our mutual friend Reagan introduced us. And yeah, I had to remind myself multiple times that it wasn't a youth national.
Yeah.
Like, because it was such a young crew of just crushers, you know. How do you feel about competing in those things and, you know, and not winning?
Yeah.
If your team is watching, how do you talk to the kids about that?
It's funny. I was talking to my wife about that a little bit, and I find one of the hardest things about climbing on this new style of boulder, because I'm so used to that old school, like pulling on holes and like
Totally.
like it's always challenging for me. Like I feel like a beginner still in that style. I have so much to learn, and one of the hardest thing is like just to let go of the fact that, like, you know, you're gonna have trouble and you're gonna suck at it at first, and like not worry about what other people are thinking. Because I was here like the last few weeks trying to train that stuff, and I felt like embarrassed because, like, you know, like a guy with rental shoes will do just as well as I'm doing on the volume.
Totally.
So it's like, so I think it's important just to try to let it go, like, or else there's no way to improve. Like, you just gotta let go. Appreciate the fact that you have stuff to learn, and appreciate the new style, and I think that's the only way to get better at it. And I think that's the approach to be, because if you're old school and you refuse, like, if you refuse to do it, that's fine, but you'll never get good at it if you don't try and you just don't appreciate it. I think it's important to appreciate the style too. Like, you know, it's something I find that I wasn't appreciating as much like before. It's like, oh no, you know, it's not like real climbing. But it's very challenging. And like when I do these comps, I feel worked out from everywhere, like spots that I've never usually used. Like, it's like it works everything. So yeah, I'm definitely interested in like training a bit more out of it. It was like quite a few years since I've been off the comp circuit, so things change a lot. And like you said, like it seems like the young kids are really dominating. Even the younger ones, the kids that were in like B category, A category, like juniors, like, you know, they're growing up into this style, and they're really adapting to that motion. And it's something I think that's challenging for athletes that are a bit older, like learning like coordination, mobility. Those are all things recovery too, like recovering, you know, it's not easy. And like, it's definitely a challenge to try to compete against young kids. And just the level of fitness that you need because I found the boulders are so counterintuitive, and you know, you need a lot of attempts sometimes to do them. And that's one thing that I found that gave me so much trouble at the comp, is when I had sometimes I was lost in how to even climb the boulders, because you look at them and you could see like 3-4 different ways to do it, and like it's like pick your way and try. Hope you get the, like, sometimes there's a lot of luck,
and they're all gonna feel really hard.
There's a lot of luck, and like if I end up falling, I just don't have the stamina right now to like give burn after burn after burn. Right. I have one good try, and then I need my 3 to 5 minutes rest to give another good burn. So that's something I find I have to really work on if I want to be successful at it again. I definitely want to try more competition, and just as a coach, I think it's good for coaches to try to see what the kids go through and some of the challenges. Like, it completely changed my perspective on how to train the kids, how to warm up. Yeah, you know, all that
You're
stuff.
You're getting a better understanding of all that movement by going there. It's
important. Yeah. So I've learned a lot from it, and then I'm going to bring a lot of stuff to my team. And then already we already started to completely change the way we're warming up and training. Like, you know, training a lot more on agility is such an important part of the climbing now. Body awareness, you know, it's just as important as being strong and like having strong fingers and having lots of power, you know?
Yeah, I think that's a fucking fantastic answer, because you know, so much ego gets in the way, and like you said, it can be embarrassing.
Oh yeah.
You know, I was just in that gym at altitude doing a workshop, a performance climbing coach seminar, and you know, we're the coaches there. We're supposed to be the experts, and I'm bouldering with everybody, and I go over to try some of those finals boulders, and I'm like on women's one, not getting off the ground, you know. It took me like 6 or 7 tries just to get stood up off the ground, and then I could get one more move, and then I'm like in this position that I can barely control, more or less jump out of into another position, you know? And that's the message I want them to get is like, I'm never going to be any good at this if I don't try it. You know, I'll never be an expert at it because I'm not going to put that kind of time into it. But I do see value in it. I do think that sort of athleticism and, you know, understanding what's required of those climbers is really, really valuable. And it's way harder than it looks when they're doing it. Like I pulled up video of Allison doing women's one, and it just, you know, the position I was in didn't feel anything like it looked for her. Like, I felt like I was about to die in that position, and she's just chilling, you know? It's fascinating. And I love
just
it.
the sequence. There's just everything's so complex, very different, very flashy. I love it. I love the new style. I embrace it, and you know, every generation, every few years, it kind of changes a little bit, and there's new challenges and stuff. And I love where the sport's going, and you know, there's still room for like that raw style. And I think outdoors, if you're climbing outside, it's still very important to focus on finger strength, body tension. Power is gonna win over. Like, I think it's important to work on all that stuff.
And you're back to focusing on climbing mostly now? Are you still going to continue competing in the arm lifting?
Yeah, like I guess now my comp season's mostly done. My goal, it was just to participate at nationals. So I had to do a few comps because now we have to qualify to move on to each step and stuff. So my goal was to compete at nationals, and now I'm probably going to focus a lot on outdoor climbing. So I'm maybe planning a little trip in March or something, maybe a week in Waco. We'll see how that. I'm just starting to look into that. And then I'll just, in the spring, I really want to get back to all my projects in Les Laurentides and in Canada. I still have tons of really hard projects. I'm super motivated to get those down. So that's going to be my main focus. Possibly going back to Russia for a world championship for arm lifting. So it's like a lot of stuff still. We'll see which one I pick, but it should be fun.
Yeah, awesome, man. Well, I'll be watching the Instagram and hoping that the projects go down with you. And watching for the next world championship. So
cool,
man. I appreciate you sitting down, taking the time out. I know the schedule was hectic, and I appreciate you working with me. So
I was super happy that you guys were able to come down. I really wanted to meet you guys, and you know, we didn't have a time to go down to my place and check all this stuff. But next time
we'll do it for sure. I'll spend a day in the basement, and we can go out and
you guys send me a message
on some of those boulders.
For sure. We'll try.
Cool.
You can try some of the boulders on the home board too.
Awesome. Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Chris.
You know, when I went and met with Yves, I went with Steve Bechtel and Alex Bridgewater from Climb Strong, and Mercedes Pohlmeyer from Modus Athletica, and Chris Heilman from Mindset Doctor. And we were all blown away by a couple of things. Number one, that the things that Yves makes look really, really easy on his Instagram are not even sort of possible. They just don't make sense. Number two, that even though Yves was right in the middle of coaching his team, he still took the time and was very excited to show us all of these things and to spend time talking with us about what he does and his methods and his ideas. And that's important to us as coaches, to understand how these high-level performers think and what their philosophies are. And Yves has put a lot of energy into it. Like I said in the beginning of this episode, it would be really tempting to use the term freak of nature, but that completely belittles the amount of work that Yves puts into this. And I just don't think you can skip over that fact. He's got a family, he's got a business. He still puts in all this time to break world records, be a world champion, and to boulder V14. That's not very easy. I will have links to all of the products that we talk about, as well as to Yves' Instagram right there in the show notes. Yves, thank you very much for taking the time out. Hopefully I bump into you again somewhere see you in the boulders somewhere. I would love to chat more. While you're there checking out Yves' Instagram, go check out his mask company as well. The attention to detail is mind-boggling, and I know that there's a connection that makes all of these things that he does work with the attention to detail that he puts into those masks. So go check that out. Your mind will be blown. And if you're interested, go check out my Instagram. There will be a video of Steve trying to pick up a weight, Alex and Steve trying to pick up the same weight, Steve and I getting it off the ground, picking it up, and then Yves just crushing it like it's nothing. That same night, in climbing shoes and standing on a soft mat, he came very close to matching his world record on the same bar that you'll see right there in the Instagram. You guys know where to find us, powercompanyclimbing.com. You can find us on the Instagram at Power Company Climbing, on the Facebook at Power Company Climbing. And you can search for us on Twitter. You'll probably find mention of Yves on Twitter because he's pound for pound, quite possibly the strongest human on Earth. But you're not going to find us there because we don't tweet. We scream like eagles.
This time, this time.